The song received its first ever airplay on the pirate station Radio Caroline.
It was played and people started calling the station and saying, where can we buy the record? I mean, it was incredible the impact it had.
I took a bus up Oxford Street and I saw these signs in record shops saying, we've got it. But it wasn't till I got towards the other end of Oxford Street and had passed 3 or 4 record shops that I realised what they were talking about was actually our record. We skip the light fandango and turn cartwheels across the floor. I was feeling kind of seasick, but the crowd called out for more. The room was humming harder as the ceiling flew away.
Pirate radio gave a voice to all this, and because we were out in international waters, we couldn't be controlled. And governments like to control things, you know, and they like people to turn up to work, pay their mortgage, keep to the speed limit, and not cause too much trouble. And here was these ships out in the ocean, stirring up a whole load of revolution and youthful energy and excitement.
This is Radio Caroline on 199, England's first commercial radio station.
7 converted fishing trawlers broadcast illegally off the British coast in a buccaneering attempt to break the BBC's monopoly on radio transmission. The pirate DJs played the music they wanted to the young generation.
Kids were all listening to us because would they rather have the Beatles or the Northern Dance Orchestra? And some younger people broadcasting to younger people, like, as in those days I was. You know, I was 21 years old. And we were all learning our trade out there. That was the great thing about it. You know, that was the exciting thing. Because you couldn't get a job at the BBC if you were below about 35 or 40.
The BBC was presented by middle-aged people reading from scripts. There was no excitement to it, there's no spontaneity to it. They wouldn't play Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone because it was 6 minutes long. Pirate radio would do all of those things. There were just no rules.
I was passionately interested in the music of my times. Could we hear it on the BBC? No, we had to listen to the Pirates.
Transmitting from 160-foot masts, the pirates hijacked the airwaves and reached tens of millions across the country who tuned in to hear the latest sounds.
Once you had portable radios, you could take a radio around with you and listen to pop music on your radio. And I think the pirate radio pioneers, really, were part of that rock and roll spirit of being, you know, very anti-establishment in their own way.
The hippie movement as such was happening in London. It hadn't really got outside London very much, but the music was able to spread it much further.
As the soundtracks of youth and rebellion buzzed through the British countryside, the government became increasingly perturbed by the pop pirates.
The ability to broadcast is such a powerful tool. You know, it's so threatening to a government that, you know, you're going to try and stop it.
Tony Benn, as Postmaster General, it became an obsession with him to get rid of the pirates. He'd be wide-eyed on TV saying, we've got to put a stop to this rebellious broadcasting.
They're stealing the copyright and paying no money for it. They're playing records that musicians have recorded and giving them no money for it. They're endangering the ship-to-shore radio, and there's a real risk that distress at sea might not be reported because of the inadequate fumbling handling of equipment.
I was at home one Sunday and the phone rang. It was Harold Wilson, the Prime Minister, rang me up. And I said, what do you ring me about? Well, he said, I'm listening to the pirate radio. What are you going to do about it? And then they produced an incredible bill called the Prohibition of Broadcasting Bill. And I said, I am not going to introduce a bill called the Prohibition of Broadcasting Bill. I'm just not going to do it. I refuse.
Tony Benn got his way, and on the 14th of August, the less oppressive-sounding Marine Offences Act came into force, effectively silencing the pirate radio stations. One station, however, had no intention of respecting the government's authority and continued to broadcast in defiance of the ban.
Nobody had really defied the British government in that way before, with a 50,000-watt transmitter, which gives you a tremendous amount of power. They reckon about 22 million people across the UK and the continent were tuned in.
This is Radio Caroline. It is now 12 midnight. We want to say welcome to the new phase of broadcasting from Caroline. I want you to remember something. That is, a station that belongs to you and is right cannot ever be taken away from you. And there are a lot of people...
We thought, what would be the first record that we should play to sum up the times of 1967, to sum up what Caroline stood for? And it was no contest, really. We played All You Need Is Love at midnight.